the political party, any political party that is like a recruitment agency for the people that Nigerians want to employ into office. And so for a recruitment agency to ask you to bring money to get recruited, maybe it's not out of place, but the figure, perhaps not. Let's have that conversation this morning with two people who are hoping to be candidates of their party, the APC. Eunice Atuejide joins us this morning. She's a 2023 aspirant for House of Representatives. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much.
As well as Adamu Garba, who is a 2023 presidential aspirant on the same platform of the APC. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
That picture that we started with seems like you were very angry. Are you still that angry?
Yes, it is. You see, you can't financialize a political office because that is an office for public good. Nobody is saying that presidential office, one of the most pricey offices on the black race, especially that of Nigeria, should be easy to get. No one is saying that. But it should be based on your quality of output, your competency, your capacity to deliver. Even in countries where we learned our democracy from, the United States of America, that's why sometimes you see so many presidential aspirants at the beginning, facing the Americans, discussing their programs, their plans, and their objectives. That is how you emerge a leader, based on the quality of what they are expecting to deliver to the public. Imagine if you put the criteria as until you provide a comprehensive security solution to this country, we are not going to give you the ticket. You see how people will jostle to find solution. You see how people to jostle to find solution to job creation, to economic problem, to our healthcare challenges, to our education challenges. But nobody is being asked that. People are just asked to provide 100 million naira. It means that a kidnapper who decides to kidnap 3-5 people and demand for ransom, he can also go and contest. It means that a bandit can also, Yahoo boy can do that. It means that even official bandits, people that steal public resources, can just go and take the office. Once you financialize everything, you are making it very difficult for people to survive. Every single system that is supposed to be for public good has a very big red tape. Healthcare is financialized. Economic, financialized. Education, financialized. Every other thing, now we are even financializing the office that's supposed to fix this problem.
It's your political party. I expected that kind of conversation would have been had. But let me also take your opening comments, Madam Atuejide.
For me, like, when I first heard, I thought, oh my God, how are we going to do this? But fortunately, for us women, it's not that high. I mean, I am racing for the House of Representatives. I have to pay 1 million naira, and then that's just expression of interest, and then I don't have to pay for the nomination form, which is 9 million naira. So for me, it's 1 million. So for me, I just felt they are letting us women come through this time. It's not cheap. So it's not like every woman, everybody just come in. No, you're still going to have to go around and get all your friends to give you their 50,000 naira, 100,000 naira, 2,000 and gather it, because on your own, you may not even have the kind of money required. But if you have a network of people that can help you raise it, you have a good chance. So for me, I actually see it as an opportunity. Because APC is the party in power at the moment, so there's a good chance that they will, retain or support a lot of us to come through. So they're already giving us an opportunity to spend way less than the men, but still have the same level of opportunity for competition and come through. So I actually see an opportunity for more of us women to come out under the APC this time, and hopefully more of us would be in government in the next dispensation. So I see it rather as an opportunity, so I'm not complaining.
But generally, I mean, if and when you become a candidate and you find yourself in the House of Representatives, you also have to be interested in what happens to everyone, not just to the female gender.
I agree with you. I will so at that time.
Yeah, but in terms, so I'm asking in terms of the costs, which has generated a lot of feedback from so many people. What is your take? Do you think it's something that should have gotten that high?
I always read between the lines. I believe that the APC leadership is looking at how to reduce the crowd. You know, my party was deregistered in 2020 because the system felt like it was too many parties and there was confusion and everything. At first I was angry, but later I started looking at it like, okay, they want to streamline. There are still 18 parties or so out there. So they don't want all of us to be in the crowd and be confusing people. They want people to like, okay, battle it and reduce the number or something. And somehow there's a part of me that kind of agrees with it. So when I look at the huge sums that APC is requiring from us aspirants, I excuse it because I see also the other side of the argument, which is to reduce the number of, how do you say, players, people who are not really serious about the candidacy or who just want to appear for the sake of it. So if you are not seriously after that position, you won't put your money there and let it go like just for the fun of it. So those people who are putting their money there would be those who are seriously after whatever position they are contesting for. So that made me kind of excuse it.
Okay. Do you agree with her? Is that excuse good
Of course, she has 1 million naira to pay. You know? So she will always have to support those people that have given her 1 million to pay. But look at people like us. I'm a private businessman, and I had a very strong blueprint that I believe can fix this country all round. And I don't believe there's any presidential aspirants among all those have declared that will be able to compete with me favorably in terms of the programs and manifestos that we have built so far, or a blueprint that is capable of transforming Nigeria. But then, those are all in the office. They have access to red pens to be able to sign monies to pick it for free, you know, legitimately or not legitimately, but they have access to public resources. So they can be able to afford 100 million. But then how can you, in a democracy where you have a future, where you have young people that are also having their own ambition, you are retaping them by money. Money is the easiest thing to get, especially in a criminal network. There are so many drug trafficking that you can do today to raise 100 million. So what are you trying to say when you put money as a cost for the office that's supposed to deliver public good? So this is really too cheap to use money as a gateway to get a leader that's supposed to decide the destiny of 260 million people. That leader must demonstrate capacity, must demonstrate competency, must show ability, zeal, commitment, desire for a better nation. That is how you do it. It is from that fine-tuning that you can be able to say, I'm telling you, if the desire is to streamline, reduce crowd, put competency around all the problems that we have in Nigeria and ask them to come and provide solution. With that, maybe you hardly produce 2 or 3.
Well, speak to that as well, because, excuse me, there are those who are wondering, how is the party, your party, the APC, going to streamline, just as she has said, going to streamline the number of people who are jostling for office without money? Everyone is going to come with plausible ideas, you know, and there are those who are going to be asking, it's going to look like favoritism if you reduce the figures so low that, in fact, some of the people who are aspiring, if, for instance, you say that the party nomination form is 5 million, they could sponsor, like, say, what, 50 people or 100 people and say, you go get the forms as well. And at the end of the day, you line up with me. You, what's the word you use? Step down for me. And because he bought the forms for them for some other promises.
This is how it is done in a very efficient democracy. We are just having a French election. You need to see how they organize it. You need to see how they put a budget and even media access for each candidate. What you do is, how many of you do you want to contest? Okay, you have panel of judges, you have a podium, come and discuss your programs. This panel of judges will look at you, 100 of you are presenting. From there, you can be able to filter 40 and say 0. You can't go to next stage. Why? Because you didn't meet criteria A, B, C based on those set out criteria. Then you move to next stage. You find out that you eliminate again 10. You move to next stage. You find out that you may end up with only 2 or 3 or 4. These are the people that you can charge them for whatever cost you need to do. By that point, you have succeeded in practically eliminating all inefficiencies and also have a program, a presentable candidate that will win election for you. So that is exactly how these things are done. But the situation whereby you decided to say, fine, let me just put 100 million naira as just a criteria, without looking at what these candidates have to offer. You will find so many people that that have led this country or are part of the problems of this country repeating themselves. This is the situation we are facing. This country has never been so divided. I had a course to study the history of Nigeria from 11th century till now. Or from that 11th century down to Moorish civilization, to Ghana, to Mele, to Songhai, to this very moment, and all the kingdoms in Nigeria. I had a course to study, and I discovered that Nigeria has never been so confused, so divided, so in a very serious wars as we are today. So it means that what you need is to pay attention to solutions to our problems. That should be the criteria for who should emerge as the president, not money. We can raise this money, 100 million. We can be able to buy the form. But what does it give? It just gives the party credit of 100 million naira. And it doesn't make sense. Why? Because 100 million naira cannot run the campaign. They say the party don't have money, so they have to generate money. That's not how you generate money as a political party. There are so many things you can do, setting up institutions, creating businesses, creating opportunities, building some actions, building souvenirs that you can be able to raise funds and be able to fund campaign.
Okay.
But the situation whereby you make money that I'm telling you, one person now is hiding in one room, he will just deceive one white man and raise that money today. You mean that person is automatically qualified to come and say he wants to be the president of this country simply because he has 100 million?
I'm sure that my colleague Kade would want to, come in sometime shortly. But madam, the issue he has raised is also something. Using money, according to him, to streamline is cheap. And there are people who have also wondered, isn't it possible for the political party to have done what he talked about, and that is organize debates with the various aspirants and select the best candidates?
You have to always look at things holistically. You have to look at a lot of different angles and then come to a conclusion that makes sense. Look at the timetable we are working with this year. It's not like the normal electioneering timetable. I was here in 2018, 2019 to the run-up to the presidency. We had a long time before we had to do primaries. Now we have just a month from the time the laws changed and the time the timetable came out. You have 1 month to organize your house. So you need to look for strategies that will potentially give you the most qualified candidates, but also remove the not so serious people, and kind of like give you an oversight of what is happening, and then also a quick turnaround so that before the deadline for your submission of your candidates is there, you've actually finished the work you need to do. So I believe I'm not one of the people who are making the decisions. And normally I'm so much like him, even worse than him. For many years, I was the biggest spokesperson against the APC. But now I am looking at it a bit more like, okay, look, there are several sides to these stories. Why are things being done the way? And then are there other arguments that may favor or that may actually explain some of these things? And I started finding them and like, okay, I may not do things this way given the opportunity to make the decisions or look at the variables and pick the choices that we should follow. But these people who are making decisions, having made these decisions, I can understand them. Yes, there are other ways to do it, and in France, they'll start 2 years to the elections and start to do these debates and select, and we don't have that kind of time. Our election cycle are so short.
Is it because we don't have the time or we didn't plan it
Our laws do not give us the opportunity to plan that way. Like, if you look at the Electoral Act before this time, you only had 90 days to campaign. How would you conduct nationwide debates in 90 days? So you have to work with whatever is the legal
madam,
framework.
It's the intra-party.
That's exactly what it is.
Not inter-party.
But the intra-party follows the specifications of the laws. So if the laws is telling you this is the time frame we expect ABC, whatever you are planning intra-party wise, you have to put it within that space. If you don't, you're going to run into trouble. So if you now have 3 months to do, for example, the whole campaign, you can't start 2 years before and start doing things, because most people will not take part when they know 90 days
so
before.
So for you, the law is the culprit?
I'm not saying the law is the culprit, but you have to understand that the decision makers have to look at many variables. They need to come to a point where everybody who is picking the forms is serious about competing and they can face off. And the candidates are not even so bad. I mean, look at everywhere. I'm in this race. Am I a bad candidate? I don't think so. You are in this race. Are you a bad candidate? No. So the fact that they're making the amount of money we pay a very important factor in our decision-making process. It's not discouraging us, at least it's not me. What it has made me do is increase the network of people that will help me raise funds. I used to have 50, now I'm going to raise it to 500. Everybody come and donate your 20K, 5K, 15K, 100K. I need to do this.
Okay. Kaudi.
Well, let's break this down, just in case you're just joining the conversation and you're wondering, what exactly is this 100 million about? Well, let's break it down for you. So yesterday, the APC put out the decision that the presidential EOI and the nomination form will cost 100 million naira. For governorship, we have a breakdown for you. It will cost 50 million naira. For senatorial EOI and nomination form, it will cost 20 million naira. There you go. House of Reps, 10 million. State House of Assembly, 2 million. There's 50% discount for candidates less than 40 years. And for women and people living with disabilities, they also have their own discounts, as it were, as well. So that's what we're focusing on this morning. And Mrs. Atuejide spoke about how she has to just pay 1 million naira instead of 10 million naira for House of Reps. So let me come back to you, Mr. Garba. Just to be clear, I know Mrs. Atuejide says, well, she can try to make up the 1 million naira. But for you, can you afford the 100 million naira?
Yes, we are going to raise the fund. We are even making a very strong, in fact, we have made a progress. It's very likely that we are going to pick the fund very soon. But this, my pain here, has nothing to do with the 100 million naira. My pain is from the capacity. Like, how can us make a presidential office in a very confused country like Nigeria, you know, to money?
Yeah, and I appreciate that point.
Be happy now. She has only 1 million. I need like 100 of her.
I appreciate that point you've made.
She has only 1 million. And the issue of debate that I raised earlier, where we need to discuss from issue, is an intra-party issue. She just joined APC. She doesn't know how we do it inside APC. I have been there since 2015. In party politics, you have an interaction with INEC. There are some specific areas where we interact in INEC. It has nothing to do with your internal activities. So it is within that internal activities that you do to fine-tune, filter, organize, so that by the time you are facing the public with formidable candidates that know what to do, that has the blueprint, and that can convince the public. Your target is to win election. Your target is not to set a red tape.
We'll try to break this down further, Mr. Garba. But just to follow up on, you said, yes, you can raise 100 million naira. And, I mean, you're on Twitter. The first response you put ended with, wow. And you said 100 million naira for a nomination form and all of that. You say, wow. But people are saying people who can afford 100 million naira, they're probably questionable. I mean, how will they just take that large sum of money and sink it into that? So how would you raise that money? Just so Nigerians can understand, for those who think maybe it will be by dubious means, how would you raise 100 million naira?
That is why, if you look at even what I said in my tweet, it's a collective resolve. Because as long as it's happening to me, Adamu Garba, simply because I have an ambition as a result of about over 10 years of research, to build a blueprint, it means it can happen to every other Nigerian. So it is very important for us to show a collective result this time around, that we collectively can be able to confront our challenges. So I'm not talking about me trying to go and start selling my property or picking money from somewhere to go and pay. Of course, I'm not somebody that has been in the public office that have stolen money. You know, what I have is just an ordinary citizen who is a private citizen, a businessman. So what we are doing is that we are going to raise the fund among the network of interested people. In fact, as I'm talking to you, there is a very massive demand on the same online platform, both on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, for people that asking me to drop my own account number so that they can make contribution. But that's not how we want to do it. As a capitalist, I believe in exchange for value. So we are trying perhaps maybe to do a book launching. I've already written my own life story, which is something that we are planning to launch very soon. So perhaps that could be an avenue for us to raise this money. And some other people also that willingly indicated their interest to donate, they are free to come and donate. That's how we are going to do it. It's not going to be me, Adamu Garba. In fact, perhaps maybe I might not even be the one to pay. Some people will pay, and then we now go and pick the form to show the Nigerian leaders that we are ready to take charge of this country and fix it in the interest of the general future and the greater good of Nigerians. We cannot continue to mortgage our future in the hands of very few decisions that seems to be putting a serious dent on the image of the party we work so hard to build.
Okay,
If you go back to history, even our
Right.
current President Muhammadu Buhari, the form of APC was 27 million in 2015. He complained about it. In 2019, where I contested, it was 45 million naira. In 2023, we are having 100 million. It means if you go by that equation, by 2027, it is going to be 250
So
million.
are you saying, in essence, that you're not happy that the president has not spoken up against this? Mr. Garba, are you saying that you're not happy that the president has not spoken up against it same way he did years ago?
Frankly speaking, I know to some significant aspect President Muhammadu Buhari. President Muhammadu Buhari is the kind of person that if there is anything that will make this form affordable to all Nigerians, I believe he will say they should go and take it. But he is overtaken by the system.
Okay.
You know, the system is such design that no matter how competent, how desirous of change you have, you come in, something will combine to crush you down. If you look at even the historical antecedents of Nigeria, it's always been since we come back to 1999 to since we come into democracy from 1999. President Olusegun Obasanjo was a competent person. He came into the system. It confuses him. Then he couldn't deliver as much as he expected to do. Similarly, you come to Yaradua, the lady Yaradua, you come to President Jonathan, similar thing. President Buhari came with a very strong plan for the economy, for security, and for corruption. And eventually you see how the system is so wired in such a way that it has to be confused. It's so confusing that it takes to consume the principal actor. So that is why even us in our manifesto, in our proposal, is to confront and reconfigure the system to be able to accept our sincere realities and liberate us from this cage that seems to confuse everybody. I know.
Let me bring Mrs. Atwejide into this because she's also an interested party. Pardon me, because of our time. So, Mrs. Atwejide, let me just ask you this. We're at a time where a lot of Nigerians have been groaning under, the economic realities we're faced with. There's inflation to grapple with. There's, rising cost of food items. There's a rising cost of, diesel, essentially energy costs, and it can go on and on. Aren't you worried about the perception, the image that this casts about your party in the minds of Nigerians? I was taking a look at Ghana's, nomination form, for example, and I realized it's just over $2,000. That's, less than 1.5 million naira, and talk about Nigeria, it's 100 million naira. So aren't you worried, really, that especially for someone who has in times past spoken up against the APC, and the work it has done, aren't you worried that this casts your party in bad light?
I'm not worried because at the end of the day, it's so much the party as it is the candidate. So at the end of the day, they are not going this time around just to go and vote for APC. They're going to be coming there to vote for Eunice, to vote for Garba, to vote for whoever it is that they're seeing in front of them. So it's not so much about APC being cast in bad light, but how about us candidates? Are we not capable of giving the audience, the voters, the stakeholders, the observers, the clear impression that we know we are faced with the reality of Nigeria and we can handle the situation? It's not the party that is coming to speak for us. It's us, the candidates, who are going to speak to the people. So I'm not worried about what impression this gives to the people, because the impression that would be important when the chips are down is the one I give to them about my candidacy, about my plans for them, and the future I believe we have an opportunity to start to grow.
But you said,
I'm not worried about the anger in the country and even outside the country because of the cost. I'm more worried about how I am going to sell myself to my people.
I find that ironic, really, because earlier on you spoke about how important a party is in giving a chance to a candidate. And in fact, in times past, you said it's just APC and PDP. When you, I think when you declared at least your support for then PDP 2019 presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar, you said, well, the battle is just between two parties. And you have again said this morning that the parties play a major role. So a lot of people want to come to APC, for example, because they know that with the clout and all of that, they'll naturally get the votes. But now you're saying that it's about the candidate. And aren't you worried that you're not worried about the perception people have about your party?
You are mixing two things that are completely different. Of course, the platform you are running on is important, but you are talking about the expensive nature of our nomination forms, and focusing on that alone, I'm telling you, is not the real deal. If you focus on how much I paid for my nomination form and you are deciding that you're not going to support APC because of that, it's highly unlikely to fly, because what you're going to be looking for, okay, now these people that have paid this money, what is their pedigree? What are they coming to give us? How are they going to help us? Are they able to sort the problems we have? Are they able to get us out of the quagmire? That's what's going to be very important to the masses when they start to vote. And we definitely have the ideas and the solutions. And when they realize that, they won't worry so much about what we paid a year ago to get those forms. They will now be worrying about how they are going to help us to make sure that we come through in the final rounds of the election next year.
Just a quick one before we wrap it all up. There are a good number of people, young people, who are wondering, how am I going to raise this amount of money to go for House of Reps?
Yes.
Men.
Yes.
Not the ones that already have a free pass, who are between ages 25 and 40, who many believe have the ideas,
yes.
That can change things, because they are more domesticated with technology than the migrants who are much older. So in terms of inclusion for the young men who have the idea and the passion for country, how this doesn't sit very well with them. You know that?
If they start to think about it the way I have done, they will realize, they will see the opportunity. Because the push you get is to increase and expand your network. I used to work with a small crew because, okay, I thought everything would be free. So I just needed to come in and persuade the people to support me against the other people, because the primaries is really the first thing first. So I thought I'll have everything free. And then suddenly I have to pay $1 million. I don't have $1 million, so I have to look for it. And I have maybe just 50 people I was expecting to give me 50K, 100K just to transport myself and go around the house to house, door to door campaign I had planned to do. Now I said, no, it's not going to work. What am I going to do about it? I don't need 50 people. I need 500 people, maybe even 1,000 to give me 20,000, 5,000, 5,000, whatever they can chip in. A lot of us believe that we have to be like those who are already in power and just pick it from somewhere. And it's not going to be like that if we really want to improve things. We have to look at the people we went to school with, the people we are in church with or mosque with, the people we dance and play with, and take that 2,000, 10,000, 20,000, 200,000 from them before you realize you have a big pot from which you can now get out there and sell the ideas. The feeling that I got it, the first feeling I got was, oh my God, oh my God. But then when I started thinking about it, even my friends, I mean, he's telling you right here, right now, he doesn't even have to raise the 100 million.
Okay.
He just has to look at his network and make sure that they raise the 100 million for him.
But I'm talking about the young people now.
So yeah, I'm talking about the young people. We're talking about the under 30s, under 36.
Yeah. Do you see a situation where young men will do whatever they can, marshal a sizable number of people, links, connections, and all of that? Let me not even talk about the 100 million. Let's talk about the 50 million and the 25 million to gather that money and donate it to a political party.
Yeah, to be very, very frank with you, if there is anything that helped the young people in this country, is this nomination fee.
Really?
For the first time, myself, I have seen a solidarity unimaginable that I have never seen in this country. So many young people, some of them even making clear donation, 3,000, 150,000, 500,000. There is a guy that said, I'm going to sell my own house and make a donation. If they are trying to do it for Adamu Garba, it means they will do it to the next friend that is close by, and the next friend, and the next friend. This is doing nothing than to push the young people to the wall, to tell them that they have nobody but themselves. So the only way to salvage the situation is to come together, using their collective strength, collective power, so that they can be able to confront the system and tell it that, look, if you have individual pocket capacity, because you have been a governor, you have been a minister for some years, you have been this, you have been a vice president for long, you have gotten a lot of money, we have ourselves.
Do you see a
It is
situation?
this ourselves. It is this our network that is going to
We need
produce
to close
that
now.
future
We
that
need
we
to close
desire.
now, but in 30 seconds, do you see a situation where young people will have a consensus candidate that they'll support?
I think I saw it. And I think that consensus candidate, if it is the presidency, is Adamu Garba.
Okay.
These young people are going to vote for
Let's close this conversation at this point there. Adamu Garba is a 2023 presidential aspirant with the APC, as well as Eunice Atuejide, who is a 2023 aspirant for House of Representatives. Thank you so much, both of you, for being here today.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Well, there are those who have for many years complained about the cost of our elections, and the news coming from the APC only takes that conversation a notch higher. This morning, Samson Itodo joins us. He's Executive Director, Yaga Africa, to talk about this and a number of other issues around the cost of electioneering in Nigeria. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks. Good morning, and good morning, viewers.
Well, maybe we should begin with how the news of the parties' presidential cost of their nomination forms, how it came to you. I think it's 40 million for the PDP, at least for now, and then this for the APC.
Well, I think that the point being made by the parties is the fact that the commercialization of our electoral process and our political process is here to stay. And none of these parties have a decommercialization agenda. And therefore, for proponents of decommercialization of electoral politics in Nigeria, reducing the cost of politics, I think this is just evidence that none of these parties has any agenda to reduce the impact of money in our politics. The second, for me, was it's disappointing that at a time when the country is going through several challenges on multi-dimensional levels, the economy, security, you have issues around national integration, the leadership that Nigeria needs is one that can deliver, first, transformative, competent, and responsive leadership, and not a leadership that is dominated by people who are the highest bidders and the highest spenders. The moment you make the entry into political contest defined by your fiscal or your economic war chest, what you do is you undermine the other, qualities and qualification that should define our leadership selection process. And it's just sad that other than the political parties investing in identifying competent leaders who can, fly the flag of the party and provide voters with options of competent people, they've pegged high cost of nomination fees. And this will, marginalize a lot of people, young people. I thought that what these parties could have done, beyond, the 50% discount that was provided either for young people and women, was to say, we've got to reduce the impact of money in our politics. We can't have a political process that is defined and determined, by money. Because what you do, you undermine the democratic process. You also promote corruption. Because when people spend this amount of money just to procure forms, we're not talking the campaigns. And so at the end of the day, when people spend huge amounts of money just to get into office, their first preoccupation when they get into office is how to recoup their resources. So it's very sad and disappointing.
Well, there are those who will reference the Electoral Act that we are all praising. I mean, is there any way that this violates the Electoral Act, the 2022 Electoral Act we're all praising?
It doesn't, because, yes, if you look at the new spending limits that was introduced by the Electoral Act, these fees does not in any way contravene the Electoral Act. We're not making a legal argument here. That's not what we're saying.
Yeah, but
the discourse here is what is the implication of increased, commercialization of our politics for the polity.
Doesn't
You're
the
going to
Electoral
end up.
Act, my apologies, doesn't the Electoral Act itself commercialize the process? I think it's about, is it 1 billion naira or so?
No, 5 billion for the president.
For the president.
And then 1 billion for
Exactly.
the governor. But you know,
So
Sheikh,
it's in a way, it would seem like the Electoral Act already legalized, this kind of spending.
Yeah.
For God's sake, 100 million naira is just 10% of 1 billion, and we're talking about 5 billion here.
no, I cannot say for God. I wouldn't say that, because 100 million naira is huge amount of resources.
So
in
is
a
5
country.
billion? So is 5 billion naira.
Of course, no. I'm just saying, yes, you can have a law, and civil society and a lot of Nigerians actually condemn the action taken by the National Assembly to reduce the campaign spending limit. We don't support that particular provision in the Electoral Act that raised the spending limit for our elections. We don't support it. But yes, there's no perfect law anywhere, and we hope that when the window opens for another reform, that they will reduce the cost, for the spending limits that was pegged. But to the point about 100 million, and I think this isn't just about the APC. It's, if you look across board, the PDP has 40 million naira. This is a country where, first, if you look at the unemployment rate, we were somewhere around 10% as at 2015. As at 2020, we moved to somewhere around 33%. Today, we are lagging somewhere around 40%. So as the poverty, as unemployment increases, and then poverty also increases, the political parties are also increasing the cost of nomination forms. And the critical question is, how many Nigerians, can afford this, this particular resources, the funds pegged by the political parties? How many young people can afford this cost? And I hear people say, yes, there are a lot of Nigerians that can afford this, and people can mobilize their resources. But don't we, threaten and undermine the whole concept of democracy if we justify why political parties should continually increase cost of nomination forms without having discussions around what should be the set criteria for people running for office?
Okay.
And the law already makes that provision. I think the more you continue to increase the funding and money spent, what you do is you increase the negative competitive nature of our elections, because people see that, oh, I've spent this amount of money, then I must do what? I must win this election. So this do or die nature of our politics, the zero-sum nature of our politics, is reinforced, by this cost. And then you now look at, this also has implications for violence, because when people have spent this amount of money, they don't want to be shortchanged. They make it a duty to circumvent elections just because they want to win. So they won't be losers at the end of the day.
Is this information that you're giving, this argument, this side of the conversation, do you think it is lost on these parties? Is it lost in them? Is it that the implications are not known or understood by the political parties pegging these figures?
I think there are two things responsible here. First, there's a determination on the political class, Nigeria's political class, to continue to recycle power within a microscopic few. And they've hijacked political power and make it so difficult for new entrants. And why? Because political power in this part of the world is not used to advance the common good. It's about settling inter-elite wars, it's about primitive accumulation of wealth, and it's about subjecting and weaponizing poverty against the people. So what you see, people use political power to oppress the masses and oppress the poor in society. So what happens to the collective good? If political power were used to advance the common good, we will be having a different conversation. In fact, the parties will not peg this high cost of fees, because what they seek to achieve is to say, yes, for them, this is a due diligence measure. Not due diligence to recruit competent people, but due diligence to limit access to the political process by more competent, patriotic Nigerians. And it's very sad. It's not about the APC. It's not about the PDP. It's about a culture and a paradigm that influences how our political parties reason. The second point is that when people perpetuate themselves in office, they become, an echo chamber. And so this discussion around poverty, around how it is difficult to raise this amount of money, does not get to them. And I just think that, even when they know that these fees, are quite high, I still find it difficult. I have looked at the fees from 2015. For the APC, they started with about 27.5. It moved to about 45 million for presidential, and then it moved to 100 million. So in 2027, we may be somewhere around 200 million. I know there can be economic arguments that can be made, but I don't see a reason why the more your poverty rises, the more unemployment rises, the more you're facing challenges of corruption and insecurity, you're also increasing the cost, of nomination fees. All you do is just, one, legitimize prebendal politics. Two, you also reinforce a political culture that Nigeria is struggling, to reverse. And three, you limit the political space to a certain class of people that have not delivered quality leadership for Nigerians.
We'll come to some examples of other countries, what obtains in other African countries. My colleague Kaude, cited an example earlier. We'll get there. But I wanted to find out from you, how does this help or harm work for or against money politics, especially at the grassroots?
Yeah.
There are people who are wondering, there are people who have been like, okay, we should de-emphasize money politics as much as possible. That conversation is out there. And then we're talking about 100 million for the presidential, 50 million for governors, and on and on and on like that. So people might be wondering, if this candidate can afford this amount, you should be able to afford something for me. Do you see that as a danger sign that we should be wary about? Is there something INEC, for instance, can do about that?
Well, it harms. It harms. I don't think it does any good to anybody. It doesn't do any good, first, for our electoral process, second, for governance, and thirdly, for the people. It doesn't do any good whatsoever. Because when you look at the grassroots, yes, this is a country where there's a new culture of people contributing to campaigns. And the argument is, when people contribute to your campaigns and you win, it strengthens the cords of accountability between people who contribute to your campaign and then the candidate in question. But then, if someone can afford, this huge amount of money, and you pay, to run for office, what you do to the psyche of the people is, when parties begin to ask individuals to pay this amount of money, voters begin to change their perception about what is actually the qualification for running for office. For me, it's about, the paradigm, what we do to the psyche of the Nigerian people. That, after all, public leadership isn't about your competence, isn't about your ability to deliver. It's about the monies that you have. So when you make the political process limited to only people who have the monies, what you do is, it can also adversely affect turnout for elections, because people would say, oh, why the hell should I even go out and vote, when already it's about people who have the highest, about people who have the resources, to pay. Because it's one thing to pay these forms, is another to also secure the nomination. Okay. So you're going to have intra-party conflict when candidates or aspirants are disqualified unlawfully and unjustly, and they seek, to go to court to enforce their right. So you're going to see a situation, given our background as a litigious society, where you also have more cases in court because of an action taken by a political party, and where you now have an electoral act that has limited the jurisdiction of pre-election matters to the Federal High Court. You're going to see an avalanche of cases. Okay. And this has, wide implications. And I wish that the political parties showed leadership at this critical point and made a bold statement to say, for us as a party, We are more interested in the capacity, the competence, and the character of individuals. We will de-emphasize, money politics and focus on this. That would have transformed radically the perception of Nigerians about the political process. It would also strengthen our democratic institutions like INEC and the police, because they become motivated and inspired that, yes, it's not about the highest bidders. We can now be allowed to provide that regulatory role and function that we are created to provide. But in cases where you're pegging these huge amounts of money, what you simply do is, hey, 2023 election will be about the highest bidder and the highest spender. And it's just sad for a country that is currently experiencing this multidimensional crisis of insecurity, national integration, economic downturn, and just a whole lot of issues.
Cody.
Well, thank you, Ayo. Mr. Otodo, here's what the party leadership, that's the APC now in this case, is saying about this, because you said you expect them to at least put out a message. But let's get the benefit of their own thinking regarding this through the spokesperson of the party, Mr. Felix Morka. And I'll come back to get your thoughts.
Some of the most special groups of citizens were granted, high consideration, either in delivering nomination forms to them for free, as in the case of women, and people living with disability. But youth who are between ages 25 to 40 also were granted 50% discount on those ones for all positions, not just for House of Assembly, for even anyone who is 25 to 30 or to 40 who is running for the office of president. Will receive that nomination form you talk about at 50% discount. So they will pay the expression of interest plus 50% of 70 million. Things are not perfect economically. They're not perfect anywhere, right? Where are they perfect? I mean, do you have an idea of a country where the economic situation is actually perfect? Is it the United States? The party thinks that, and made a decision that the value put on these forms are justified.
So that's what the party thinks deep down, and for them it is justifiable, or at least justified. Clearly there's a disconnect here, because it looks like Nigerians expect one thing, but the parties have, the way they conduct things. So is this just a misunderstanding? Because as it seems, the party thinks this is the right path to follow.
Well, the party has a right, to determine the cost of its nomination forms. But what the party also needs to recognize is it doesn't exist for the elite. It doesn't exist for itself. It exists for the Nigerian people. Because what's the core function of a political party? A political party, first, contests for political power, but also is a platform for the aggregation of social interest. This action taken by political parties across board does not reflect the social reality, the economic reality, and the political reality of Nigerians as at today. In today's Nigeria, this cost of form is clearly an aberration, and I would say, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, I must say. So I think they're just disengaged from reality. It doesn't in any way reflect, again, our social reality and our economic reality. It's within the remit of the parties to determine their cost of funds, but parties must also know that they don't exist for themselves. They don't exist for the elite who can afford it. They exist for the Nigerian people. Political parties should open up their processes and invite Nigerians, to run and participate in their process. But when you limit access by pegging this high cost of nomination fees, you simply even disadvantage yourself, because what you do is the competent people, the people with character, the people with capacity, who don't have the resources, to purchase these nomination forms, will not have the opportunity, to provide leadership. And so one way or the other, this also adversely affects the political parties. I just wished that at a critical juncture of our political life, that the political parties seized this opportunity, but unfortunately they failed to do so. Yes, whilst we commend them for the concessions given to women and young people with the discount, But even the discount for some of the forms is for the expression of interest forms that are even less in less amount.
Okay,
but
Mr.
the
Todo,
nomination forms also have higher costs.
So what would you say?
These are the critical issues.
So what would you say is a fair, do I say price now, for the EOI and nomination form? We've seen 40 million naira for the PDP, now 100 million naira for the APC. How much would you say is fair enough and reflective of the reality?
The big question to ask is, should the parties even ask aspirants and candidates to pay to indicate and express their interest? Expression of interest to seek, for office or to seek the nomination of the political party, should that process be commercialized in the first place? And my principled position is that political parties should devise a means of selecting leaders. And asking people to pay for forms, I don't think should be practice that should be adopted. For me, we shouldn't even ask people to pay for nomination forms or expression of interest forms. Political parties can devise means of selecting their leaders. Encourage people, if they want to seek for public office, let them apply, and then you can consider those applications. And parties, and in this climb, and in other climes, I must say, that parties sponsor candidates. And here in Nigeria, it is candidates that sponsor political parties. Until we change this anomaly, you're going to have situations where this whole concept of internal democracy within parties cannot be achieved, because the party structures are hijacked by individuals who have the resources to fund the parties, and not necessarily by the parties who ideally are first a conglomeration of different interests and individuals who are able to build consensus internally. But to ask people to pay, I don't think it's good practice. I think that we should have other ways, of parties generating its own income. I am not one who supports state funding of political parties, but I think parties, can actually recruit members pay their dues. You also have people donate to the parties. The 2022 Electoral Act has actually legitimized the process of individuals donating, to parties, and also parties donating to campaign, but it sets several caps, for donations that individuals can make. But please don't ask people to pay these huge amounts of money, because what you do is you stamp this narrative that public leadership is the exclusive preserve of people who have economic strength. And that shouldn't be the case, because it has not helped Nigeria anywhere.
But what the other variant you gave earlier is what we had. It was the system we had, I think, in the First and the Second Republic that we had in this country, where the parties donated, they supported their candidates, and people donated to the political parties. What we are having now, is a little different. People pay levies and membership dues on a frequent basis back in time. I don't know if that's something that still happens now, or at the level at which it was happening in the First and the Second Republic. There are those who are watching us now who will still have their membership forms of the UPN of those days, of the Action Congress, the NCNC of those days.
Yeah.
So at what point did we turn the table, so to speak?
I think the point where we turned the table was when, we yielded the political parties to individuals who had the might and the resources to first put party executives on monthly salaries. And so parties don't pay the salaries of their staff. And at the states, it's the governors that do what? That pay the salaries of party officials. So they have the party officials in their pockets, right? Secondly, how are these leaders even elected within the political parties? Thirdly, which party has an updated, accurate register of its members, right? And then, how many party members are also paying dues? I think that there are party members who want to contribute by paying dues to their political party. But the party itself, has to, and in this case, just is looking forward that parties need to take serious, revenue generating mechanism, and one of which is the dues, that members should pay dues. And when members pay dues, it enhances their commitment, but it also empowers them to ask questions and hold their leaders to account.
Okay.
Because the whole concept of internal democracy, is exemplified or expressed in three ways. One, how leaders are elected, how candidates are nominated, how decisions are made within the parties.
Okay.
And the decision, to pay this high cost of nomination fees, I don't know if it went through a consultative process within the parties where the different political parties consulted with their members, or it was the leadership of the parties or one individual who determined this particular cost.
Okay.
But this actually can be reversed, and I think political parties should see this as an opportunity, to redefine politics and leadership recruitment in Nigeria.
Talking about political parties, there are many other a good number of other political parties that we have in the country other than the two leading parties. Yes, many democracies usually throw up, many multi-party systems usually throw up two major parties, but there are those others. It wasn't always the APC, against the PDP since 1999. It was other political parties that, coagulated to form some strong opposition. And we've been talking about third force now since how many election cycles now? And we don't seem to have been able to get there. I'm asking this question against the backdrop of the reaction of people in the grassroots. These two major political parties have very strong, machineries around themselves. Is there a way that the other political parties who may want to see in the reaction of Nigerians try to rewrite the books, so to speak, and position themselves as an option to this money politics that's playing now?
I think the other 16 parties, because in this case, PDP and APC, because we have 18 registered political parties. The other parties need to see this as an opportunity. I know in 2019, some parties actually gave free forms, to young people, to women, and asked and invited people who wanted to run on their platforms, to come secure their party nomination. A lot of young people took that opportunity. But at the end of the day, they didn't win the elections. Now, I think that for parties, the other parties should see this as an opportunity. Invite people, reduce the cost, because even though there's sort of power asymmetry between the two main parties and the other political parties, I think that those parties, can provide an opportunity. And I encourage people, honestly, if you can't afford this high cost of nomination forms, go to a political party that aligns with your vision and your ideology and has less cost of nomination forms. Secure their nomination forms. If you are popular within, your constituency at the local level, you can win elections. In 2019, parties like ZLP, won elections. I know two young people who are between 25 and 29, who are beneficiaries of the Not Too Young to Run Act in 2019, won elections, and they sit in the National State House of Assembly. One of them was 26, the other was 29 or so. And they ran under the platform of ABGA. There was one who also ran under the platform of ZLP. So at the local level, the dynamics is also different. So whilst we talk about the federal and the presidential, at the local level, I think young people who cannot afford this high cost, look for the smaller parties. I encourage you, procure their forms, run. Because in any case, if you're popular within your constituency, if you're popular within your community, the platform to a large extent doesn't really matter. Because in any case, and I say this whether it's de facto or de jure, that at the end of the day, voters in Nigeria don't necessarily vote for parties. They vote for individuals. Although the Supreme Court, in its wisdom, believes that votes, belong to a party because the Constitution says it is the party that sponsors the candidate. It's the platform, no doubt. But we know that when people go to vote at elections, there may be other cleavages that shape political competition and voter behavior. But what we know for sure is people vote for individuals. And so make yourself popular within your community and your constituency. But don't also just wake up, at the 11th hour to say you want to run. Because these parties when they talk about structures, they talk about individuals that they have at the wards and the polling units who represent their interest. So you can also build those structures. You don't necessarily need this major political parties to win elections.
Just a very quick one. Do you see a role for INEC in this, since the parties haven't broken any law, so to speak?
In regulating the cost of...
Yes.
Well, INEC is a creation of the law. And INEC cannot work ultra-vires. It must follow the provisions of the law.
Okay.
And as far as the parties are concerned, they've not violated any provision of the Electoral Act or the Constitution. And so what INEC can do is mainly within the remits of the Constitution and the Electoral Act. What does the law say? And INEC is vested with the powers in the Electoral Act to do what? To monitor donations made by political parties. In fact, the Electoral Act actually vests INEC with the power to set the cap of donations made by individuals, to political parties or even parties to political campaigns. And in fact, in some cases, the law also provides that when donations are made, the source of the income must be verified.
Okay.
So these are issues. So INEC can, but I think on this particular issue, it's clearly an intra-party affair, and INEC cannot meddle into this affairs of political parties.
That part about regulating where the money comes from. It will be interesting to see how that is played out by anybody. Samson Itodo is Executive Director, IAGA Africa. Thank you so much for your time.
It's always a delight to be here. Thank you.
Okay. At the end of the day, when people are employed to do a job, it is for one thing, part of which is economic development. That is the next leg of this conversation when we return from this break. Stay with us.
Nigeria is blessed, hugely blessed, with various resources, both human and natural resources. One of them is gas. So when a lot of people say, our economy should be better than this, it is expected and understandable because we have hundreds of trillions of cubic feet of gas still untapped. Now, that's one way we can shore up, for example, our forex. There are other ways. And this morning, yes, we've talked about the political angle, but there's an economic angle as well, which we cannot talk about in isolation. In fact, there's a political economy, you hear them say. And to have that conversation with us, we're joined by Dr. Muda Yusuf, who is the founder and CEO, Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise at CPPE. Dr. Yusuf, thank you for joining us on Sunrise Daily this morning. Well, I'd quickly like to get your thoughts on the conversation we had earlier. It looks like, yes, you're involved with private enterprise and all of that, but there's a political enterprise as well, and it's looking very lucrative, just hearing the expression of interest and nomination forms for political parties. But I'd like to bring that to bear on our economy. All of that activity, spending, how does it impact our economy? Is this good or not?
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, it depends on the perspective from which we are looking at it. At first, all this process of heavy monetization of the political process has a major disadvantage of exclusion. In other words, when we are looking for competent leaders, people with integrity, people who have the expertise, intellectual capacity, and all of that. When there is this heavy monetization, it has a way of excluding a huge percentage of people who have the capacity to lead. Because it is very difficult, very, very difficult to see people who have this quantum of money and who also have the integrity and the competence to provide the leadership. So the monetization process in the political space is creating a major leadership problem within the context of our democracy. So that is one issue in terms of the impact of the quality of leadership that this monetization is causing. Now, when you now look at it at a micro level in terms of the spending that goes along with elections, Of course, it has some impact in terms of those who benefit directly from the spending. For instance, INEC has a huge budget to conduct elections. They are going to spend on logistics. They are going to spend on printing of ballot papers, ballot boxes. They are going to recruit ad hoc staff and all of that. That will lead to some injection of liquidity in the system, which is not bad. So for those who are private sector players, you follow the money, you know where INEC is spending the money, you can position yourself to also supply some of those things. And we must emphasize that INEC should, as much as possible, domesticate all the spending. This is not the time to go and be importing things for purposes of election. Whatever we need to do, we need to spend the money locally so that the local investors, local citizens can benefit from it. Secondly, the political parties also spend money. Again, from a purely investment or private enterprise perspective. We have to look at where they are spending the money on. Some of them spend the whole money on publicity. So for the private sector players that are in the media space, this is possibly also their own season. They have to place adverts, they have to do jingles, they have to move around, they have to do road shows. I mean, that is spending. Then you also spend a whole lot on logistics. Somebody has to provide that. So from a purely private investment or enterprise angle, we can look at it from that. But overall, the heavy monetization of the process is not good for the quality of leadership that the democratic process produces for us. And we don't have the right kind of leadership. It will affect the kind of institutions you have. It will affect the quality of policies. It will affect the quality of appointments. And at the end, it will have a very serious effect on economic performance, because all of these things work together.
Okay.
If we get
Dr.
it
Yusuf,
wrong at the top, we will have this problem.
So let me pick up on the policies, the quality of policies which you talk about, because all of these things are actually interconnected, as you have said. And just recently, the World Bank disclosed that import restrictions and the non-flexible exchange rate management by the CBN is majorly responsible for the food inflation we're seeing. And, you know, for a lot of people, that's a reality for them, which is why when they hear 100 million, 40 million, they think about how that can impact on their lives directly. Hitherto, we had been told that the food inflation is also as a result of insecurity, rising cost of transportation, and all of that. So in terms of policies, especially because this affects everyone, you know, particularly, what can we do? Do you agree with the World Bank on the one hand on the ways to ensure that we at least lessen the burden on the average Nigerian?
Yes, I agree with the World Bank. Bad policies have done a whole lot of damage. It has inflicted a whole lot of problems on this economy. Now we are faced with about 3 major crises now. We are faced with the energy crisis. We have a foreign exchange crisis. We have an inflation crisis. These are the 3 major economic challenges that we are faced with. Of course, we have the insecurity, which also has an impact on the economy. And for all of these crises, there's domestic components of the crisis. I'm talking of domestic factors that have contributed to the crisis. There is also the global or external factors, which you can call exogenous factors, that have contributed to the crisis. Now, for the exogenous factors, which are external factors, like this Ukraine problem, like the global energy prices and all of that, you don't have much control over that. And that is affecting all economies across the world. But domestically, we have a lot of control over the kind of policies, the policy choices, and the policy responses to this crisis. One of your earlier speakers, the background intro that you played, talked about the effects of policy on investment in the energy sector. Our energy crisis is so bad because we have mismanaged our oil and gas sector from a policy point of view. We have discouraged investment. We have caused a lot of investors to exit the country. We have allowed many of them to relocate from onshore. Some of them have gone to deep offshore. Many of them have even left the country because of bad policies. It's only recently we are talking about PIA. For how long have we been a player in the oil and gas sector? For close to 60 years. But because of some selfish interests, because of issues of corruption, we have not adequately incentivized investment. I mean, how much private investment do we have, for instance, in the downstream? The downstream is in refining, it's in pipelines, it's in logistics, in that. How much of private investment? The whole thing is dominated by the government, by NNPC. And look at the price we are paying for it today, because there is no investment in that space. So it is policy problem that has discouraged investment in the oil and gas sector, in the upstream and in the downstream. And for a very long time, investors have been crying that we need to fix the policy environment in oil and gas. But for some reasons, some policymakers feel that when the private sector is advocating for good policies, they're advocating for it for selfish reasons. They feel that it's because we want profit and all of that. They forget that if we create the right environment for investors, if the economy is growing, everybody benefits. It helps social stability, it helps economic stability, it promotes self-reliance and all of that. So that is the kind of damage that bad policies has done to oil and gas. The same thing in our foreign exchange policy. The crisis we have in the foreign exchange space today is also partly as a result of bad policies.
Well, Mr. Yusuf, just before, you know, a number of issues always come up. I mean, when we talk about the economy, today we're talking about the price of gas and all of that, you know, but it would seem like the IMF and the World Bank that Kade mentioned earlier, which you have also spoken to, agree on the state of inflation. They agree on everything concerning inflation. But recently, the IMF kind of reviewed its growth trajectory for Nigeria. Are you as optimistic as the IMF about Nigeria's economic growth forecast to 3.4% in the middle of all the things that the private sector have to contend with?
Well, issues of GDP growth are important, but sometimes they are also not as critical. Generally and historically and empirically too, there's a strong correlation between Nigeria's GDP growth and oil price. Empirically, that has been the trend. When oil price is increasing, our GDP often increases. Yes, we have challenges with oil output. Yes, we have challenges with insecurity in the oil and gas, oil producing areas, affecting investors and all of that. Nonetheless, given the trajectory of global oil price, it will positively impact on GDP growth. So to that extent, and that is the main driver and main determinant of the forecast that the IMF has put on the table. To that extent, we can say, yes, we are going to have that. But what is GDP if you are contending with all of these crises? Look at inflation. If there's any problem that the
on inflation,
are complaining about, come again?
Yeah, on that inflation, both institutions also seem to agree on the role of food prices in all of that. And we've been talking about this for quite a bit, Mr. Yusuf. So is there a silver lining anywhere that can bring down the cost of food, the high cost of food prices, producing it, and even transporting it, logistics of it and all of that, in a way that it will directly affect our inflation figures positively?
Well, these things are not quick fixes. They are not things you can deal with in the immediate or short term. Because when you look at issues of food, there's a whole lot of structural issues impeding food supply. We have first the level of technology that we adopt in our food production, which is still very primitive and very traditional. We have the structural issues of having to move from the farm gate to the market, which is about roads and the railway system. We have the issues of storage, which is also again about electricity. We have the issues of post-harvest losses. So we have all of these issues. And these issues have been with us for a very long time. Of course, we have seen the CBN throwing a whole lot of money into the agri space. But money is not everything. The CBN seems to be almost working alone, just putting money out there. There are some other complementary things that needs to happen for us to have the right kind of outcomes. So that is why, in spite of all these so-called intervention funds, we are still having very high inflation in terms of food. So there we have that issue.
Right.
Then on top of that, we have this insecurity problem. If you have insecurity problem, how the farmers, even the limited ones that they are producing, they cannot even go to the farms.
Well, and I think a lot of these...
What is the situation now? And what is the outlook for this insecurity problem? It's not looking so bright.
Well, Dr. Yusuf, as you've said, a lot of this has been placed at the feet of insecurity, and clearly we need a lot of work in that area. But we have to anchor at this point. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, as always. Dr. Muda Yusuf is the founder and CEO, Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprises, joining us virtually this morning. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, let's begin with the last part of the program, is your own contribution to the program this morning. And the first one is from Festus Akimboyewa, talking about the high cost of forms. He says, the huge fees our two main parties are charging for nomination forms is a sign that 2023 elections will be the most expensive since independence. The pricey presidential showdown between the APC and PDP will be hijacked by billionaires who wield tremendous political influence.
We'll take a look at Dr. Umabi's tweet at IPEM saying the excessive financial cost of political participation eliminates the moral weight of promise bounded in trust and leadership.
Chris says, we should be more logical than emotional about the cost of forms by political parties. If a candidate is truly popular, his supporters can contribute towards that. A party should be able to reduce the crowd of aspirants the way it deems best. Another perspective to him.
Absolutely, and that's the beauty of democracy. Ideas always come to, contend. You might not have the day, but you definitely have your say. Well, we'd like to thank you so much as well for your messages and your time this morning. Thank you for allowing us help start your day the right way. I wish you the very best today. I'm Kayode Okikiolu.
I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day.